And now to Carol Maureen and the changes that are coming to the City Council. Carol.
Phil, the incoming mayor says he wants to cut, and one of the places he's starting is in the City Council. Emanuel says reducing the number of council committees from 19 to 16 will save taxpayers close to $500,000. It's also, to a certain degree, an attempt to diminish the authority of Finance Committee Chairman Ed Burke. Is this a major change or a symbolic alteration in the way business is done in Chicago? We're going to ask our panel. They are 32nd Ward Alderman Scott Waguespack, 12th Ward Alderman George Cardenas, 6th Ward Alderman-elect Roderick Sawyer. Mr. Sawyer is the son of former Mayor Eugene Sawyer, by the way, and 49th Ward Alderman Joe Moore. Welcome, all of you, to Chicago tonight. So let's just start with you, Alderman Waguespack. Reduction from 19 to 16. Is it symbolic? Is it meaningful? Is it big or not so big?
Well, I think that most aldermen said that they would like to see a reduction in those committees, and I would think that of the 50 aldermen, we kind of all looked at the same ones and said we could merge 3 or 4 of them into other committees, which is what happened. On the flip side of that, the mayor-elect has created a new committee called Workforce Development and Audit, which I think will kind of be a pushback on the Finance Committee, but we'll see how that works out.
Alderman Cardenas, less than $500,000 is in a city that has a gigantic budget hole. Is that a serious savings?
It was very significant. I think in dollar terms it may not be, because some of these committees are not, don't have huge budgets. Some of them have $80,000, $90,000. But if you think about efficiencies, consolidation, anytime you consolidate any power, I mean, that's significant.
And you're the chair of a consolidated committee, correct?
Correct. Significant. There's efficiencies. There's less bureaucracy. Sometimes you have to have 2 meetings and coordinate with 2 chairmen, and that's a challenge in itself. So I call that a win. It's very significant as far as I'm concerned.
Alderman-elect Sawyer, do you see this as a major or significant change?
I believe it's a step in the right direction. I believe that once we start doing things like this, showing the public that we are about serious change, about a more efficient, more productive government, I think that we can go a long way towards getting other changes instituted in the council and throughout the city.
Alderman Moore, what about you?
I don't have anything else to add. I agree with my colleagues. I think symbolism is very important in politics, and while we're not talking a lot of money in the big scheme of things, when we have we're facing a $500 million deficit, nonetheless it is significant. As the new mayor pointed out, it's the fewest number of committees on the city council since the 1950s.
But you could have gone down to 10. And then, you've got a $500 million deficit and a $500,000 saving. There's a long way to go.
We still have issues to deal with in the city council, and one of the things that the new mayor did was solicit our opinions as to what we believed should be the council consolidation. So I went down the list and I offered my recommendations, but there are a lot of areas of legislation that clearly fall under certain jurisdictions, and if you consolidate the committees too much, then you're really consolidating power, which is not always a good thing either.
On the other hand, you have been one of the critics of the past administration, a vocal independent. This is the first time you've gotten a committee chairmanship, correct?
20 years is a long time to wait for a chairmanship, but I'm very happy that the mayor has suggested that I be a committee chair.
All right, so is it symbolic or is it actually strategic and meaningful that Alderman Ed Burke's power, to some extent, I'm not sure minor or major, but to some extent is limited, and Patrick O'Connor now oversees this newly created committee? What is that about?
I think it's less about Ed Burke and more about the confidence that the new mayor has in Pat O'Connor. And Pat O'Connor also works very well with all different factions of the city council, and so I think he understands there's a lot of very politically sensitive and tough decisions that are going to have to be made, and I think he wanted someone who he trusted
supported
implicitly.
Him for mayor.
Right.
I mean, Alderman Burke did not. So is there a significance to this, Alderman Cardenas?
Well, I think it's a workable situation. I think Pat gets along with everyone. In this case, I think Pat's going to provide valuable insight into the council for the new mayor. He's got to trust in him. I don't think it's much as about power. I think power. I think that Alderman Burke personifies that, and I think that that's going to be diminished one bit as far as I'm concerned. So I think it's a very very workable solution. I like it, and it'll have a new team working. I think in sync with the new mayor.
If I was going to cut meaningful in city council, or in a bigger way, I might cut the number of aldermen. Was that ever a conversation, Alderman Waguespack?
Yeah, I think in my first conversation with Mayor-elect Rahm, it was brought up. I've looked at a lot of other cities. I've done a lot of research to see what other cities have in terms of aldermen, what they have in terms of committees, and Chicago is right up there with New York City. A lot of other cities have half the number we have or less, but they also have much larger staffs, and they are legislators. They don't do the tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis. So there's a lot of things there.
Constituent complaints, potholes, tree trimming, all of those things?
All those things. And if you look at what they do in the other cities, they're not focused on those issues. Those are handled by commissioners and those departments. If that changes over time, I think you could see us reduce the committees a bit further, and I think that would be a good thing. It remains to be seen what happens with this new audit committee. You know, if we're going to have the issues on the table we've been talking about for many years that haven't been addressed.
Name one.
TIF transparency and TIF reform.
Because TIF are that big pot of money that lives on the other side of the budget balance sheet, right?
It's not on your tax bills, and that needs to change. We need to get that stuff out there so that taxpayers see really how much money has been basically taken aside off the books. It does good things, but we need to show taxpayers where that money's being spent.
Is that going to happen?
Well, we have a way of knowing. I mean, it's in the website how much money's in the tips. One of the things that I think my colleagues alluded to is it's how the money is used in some instances, and who gets some of these deals that are created with TIF funds.
Well, the new mayor has indicated to his credit that TIF reform is high on his priority list, and so I anticipate that this new committee will make that part of its agenda.
So we got this gigantic budget hole, but the new mayor has also promised to put more police officers on the street. As members of the city council in this new era, where will the money come for the police officers, and how many new police officers will there be? Alderman Sawyer, do you know?
No, I don't know, but what I do know is that we should do things as creating efficiencies. For example, I was actually talking to the mayor-elect recently about absenteeism, for example, being lax on jobs in several departments, including the police department, including streets, and saying he believes that there's efficiencies there, for example, that could ultimately result in adding jobs to our bottom line, adding more money to the budget, where we can hire more people, because people, in all honesty, are abusing the system, and that's something that should be done about that, for example.
So, not in raising taxes? I mean, are we honestly saying that there is not needed a new revenue stream?
We have almost a $600 million budget gap here, and we've been running a deficit for 10 years straight. There's got to be something else that breaks here. I'm not sure what it is, but I think we have to be straightforward with taxpayers, and I think that the new mayor does, and we have to put all these things on the table to see where we're spending and why we're spending it. And then also, do we have to raise more revenue? And I think a lot of people have said that.
I think there's some ideas on the table. I think, but we do have to be truthful to the taxpayers and saying, how dire the situation is, and where we're cutting, so that we can present something to them palatable and ask them also for their support. But everything must be on the table, and efficiencies and it's some of the sacred cows that forever we keep talking about it, but we don't do anything about it.
Efficiency is a much more palatable word than taxes, right? I mean, finding economies, finding cutbacks, sure. But the truth is, and Alderman Moore, you've been on the council a long time.
Well, I agree with my colleagues that everything has to be at the table, but we should first concentrate on making government more efficient and transparency, because you're never going to build any political support for any kind of revenue enhancements, tax increases, without first giving people the assurance that the money that the government has now is being spent wisely and prudently and efficiently. And without that transparency, we're not going to have that.
And we haven't had that transparency to this point?
Not to any great degree, no. I think that's one of the drums I've been beating for the last 20 years on the city council is more transparency. You know, and you know, what I'm hearing from Mayor Emanuel is his commitment to doing just that, which is very refreshing.
More than 80% of our budget is spent on personnel. So if there's anything to look at, it's people. It's people, right? So we got to go there, wherever it lies and wherever it happens to land.
But there's also go ahead, Rob.
I'm sorry, just quick. But in addition to these efficiencies, I think we need to start looking at new revenue. I know we talk about revenue enhancements, we talk about taxes, but we need to talk about how we can generate new and different types of revenue at this point. Not start looking outside of the box.
Like what?
I was talking earlier, for example, real quickly. I don't smoke, but currently we sell cigarettes in packs of 20. It creates, because of this, and the price of cigarettes is so high, it creates an underground economy. People sell individual cigarettes, and that way we're losing tax revenue. We're not collecting money from those.
You're talking about a new kind of tax.
I'm talking about a new type of revenue. This is a new revenue.
That sort of sounds like a tax.
It's not a tax. I mean, people that smoke are going to buy cigarettes, whether they buy a pack of 20 or a pack of 4. I'm just saying, give them an option. People can't afford $10 for a pack of cigarettes, but maybe they can afford $2.50. And I'm not judging one way or the other. What I'm saying is that people that smoke are going to smoke. Offer them cigarettes. Let us collect that revenue from those different types of taxes.
Alderman Moore, you talked about beating a drum. One of the drums that's been beaten, but only by a minority of aldermen, has to do with a real inspector general, as opposed to an imaginary one that looks at aldermen. Because currently, the city inspector general can't touch city council. Is that going to change? Is there going to be a meaningful kind of oversight of aldermen and their staffs as there is of other
I think
employees?
there will be. I think if you look at the new aldermen that are coming in, and we have a little over a dozen, they have ideas that I think are compatible with this progressive movement that we're seeing in the city, that we need to change the city, and we don't have time to waste. The budgets are overwhelming. The deficits are too big. We don't have time. And I think with the contract oversight that's been kind of languishing in the city council that we've put out there, asset lease ordinance to watch that so that we don't privatize like we did with the parking meters and lose billions of dollars, have oversight over the members through this inspector general. And I think
so would you vote to extend the current duties of the current inspector general?
I did with Joe Moore and a few other aldermen. We co-sponsored that a couple of years ago, and it failed. But I think with the new people on board and the way that the mayor-elect wants to change things, that could pass this time.
Alderman Cardenas, would you support that?
I supported it last time. I'm not going to oppose any changes or any reform. And at the end of the day, if you're doing everything right, you should have no worries.
Alderman-elect Sawyer?
Yes, I was interested in looking at it further, but conceptually, I would support that.
The Alderman-elect Sawyer, Mayor Emanuel did not support you in your race. He supported your opponent.
Yes.
Is it a cordial relationship now?
So far, it seems to be. The times I've had the opportunity to speak with Mayor-elect Emanuel, either on the phone or in person, it's been very cordial. He did, once we met in person for the first time, he laid his cards out on the table and stated that he supported the opponent and hoped that all that's behind us. And I told him, yes, that was behind us now.
So that was the campaign, and now this is the administration.
Now. And we both gave the desire that we want to work together with each other, and we both have common goals and objectives. And to the extent that they're in sync, we're fine.
So we're looking at a honeymoon period, for any new elected official, especially after 22 years of the predecessor. Does he have the chance of having a honeymoon with City Council?
Well, I think all of us are, certainly myself, prepared to hit the reset button. The old ways they used to describe the city council, reform versus machine, regular versus independent. I think as the challenges facing us have become much more monumental, those differences, those labels don't mean as much. Are there going to be differences? Are there going to be disagreements and debate? Of course there's going to be, but I see shifting alliances on given issues rather than this hard and fast, regular versus independent kind of separation.
Alderman Waguespack, you were on the wrong side of Mayor Daley a lot, as I recall. Is this going to be a change with you and this mayor? Is there a honeymoon you're prepared to give him?
I don't think I need to give him a honeymoon, and I don't think he wants a honeymoon. He's the type of guy that I think wants to see things done very quickly. There's plenty of opportunity here to get a lot of successes on the table right off the bat. If you look at the transition document, there are many things in there that I've read through that I think were already on the table. He will be able to take them and move the ball forward.
And you think in this first 100 days, we're going to see some real movement?
I'm very optimistic. You're going to see a lot of movement. You may not like it. You know, some of it is going to be phenomenal, and I'm sure other people's going to be critics, just like you know, in the past.
Just like there always are.
There always are. But I'm very optimistic. I'm ready to hit the ground running as well. And so it's going to be challenging, and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it.
Alderman Waguespack, Alderman Cardenas, Alderman-elect Sawyer, Alderman Moore, thank you very much
Thanks
for being on Chicago Tonight.